we were talking about how to get an internship, how to get a job in this industry, and that's really what this day is about. You know, if we had to explain the mission of this day in one sentence, it is to prepare you to be the single best interview someone will have on any given day. You know, you can walk in there and be conversant and have a lot of interesting things to talk about, and you'll be prepped and be ready. The next person, this is her kind of mission in life, is to help candidates match up with jobs and to help people prepare themselves to get ready for that first job. And the title of this panel is a career workshop, straight up career advice on how to give yourself your best advantage. Delia Kamaska is the talent acquisitions marketing manager at Macy's. But she's worked in the media industry for a long, long time. She was in talent acquisitions at Scholastic. I met her first when she was campus relations manager at NBC Universal. And she's worked in television production, and she actually ran her own kind of recruiting training program for a while as well. So she's really insightful, and she can offer a tremendous amount of great advice on how to get that internship, how to get that first gig, and how to excel in the industry. So without further ado, Delia Kamaska.
Thank you and welcome. Thank you everybody for coming to this presentation. I've been looking forward to it. I remember many years ago when I was in your shoes. I want to start off by saying that I was 12 years old when I decided what I wanted to do. I was a weird child, what can I say? I really knew what I wanted to do, that I wanted to become a television producer, and specifically I wanted to become a TV producer for PBS. I wanted to produce documentaries, and I'm happy to say that I was able to live my dream and do that for many years. It was a long journey there. It wasn't something that happened as quickly as I anticipated, but there was a lot of challenges, frustrations, rewarding experiences, exhilaration, a lot of patience throughout the journey. And that's one of the things I would like to convey to you, is that you need to be patient. A lot of people think, you know, in a couple of years I'll be producing for Good Morning America. It doesn't work that way. It takes a long time to get those coveted production roles. And this business is something that can change on a dime. So sometimes it's about being at the right place at the right time. And sometimes it does happen quickly. Sometimes you just have to keep your mind open to new opportunities, something that you may not anticipate might be thrown your way, and you have to kind of be open to it. I started my career when I was a sophomore in college, actually. I realized that it was really important to have experience before I graduated from college, and I realized that internships was the way to get that experience. In my situation, I had done a lot of research on internships. I realized that I needed to pay for the credits that I was going to get for the internships. I had done I'd spoken to some other students who had taken internships, and the ones that were available to us at the school I went to were not always as fulfilling or a learning opportunity as they could have been, and I decided to pursue paid positions instead. I did some freelancing, some volunteering, all while I was still in college. So by the time that I graduated school, I could barely fit my experience on one page. There's a lot of schools of thought on whether you should have a one-page or a two-page resume. As a recruiter, I look at hundreds of resumes a day for entry-level all the way up to VP-level positions, and I'm of the school of thought, and there is no right or wrong, but I'm of the school of thought that a resume needs to be well-formatted, easy to read, bullet points, and if you have the experience and the background to warrant a second page, then go for it. That's really important, though, that you have your resume very easy to read and highlight what's relevant to the job that you're some of my early jobs I actually pursued through teachers. I tried to take classes with teachers who were active in the industry, and at my school there was one particular teacher who was a film editor, and I volunteered to go help him during the summer break to work on some stuff and to edit something that I was working on at his studio. And through that job I was able to meet people that led me to other jobs. I worked as a photographer for the U.S. Tennis Open. I volunteered to be a production assistant on a movie set. So I did a lot of different types of little jobs, most of them paid jobs, some of them were volunteered. But I tried to get as much under my belt before I graduated. And that's what makes you stand out. When you're applying for those internships or you're applying for those first jobs, it's your experience that's related to the job that you're applying for that counts. So most of my jobs while I was in production was freelance. 80% of production jobs available are freelance. There's two areas where there's more opportunity for staff full-time jobs, and that's in news and promotions. But most other areas, even daily news like the Good Morning America and the Today Show, those are areas that you can get staff work in. Other daily shows, most shows don't always run year-round. They might run anywhere between 6 to 9 months out of the year, and then they go on hiatus. But daily shows are usually one of the areas where there's full-time opportunity. Freelancing, you get hired to work for a specific amount of time, a couple of weeks, a couple of days. It could be 6 months, it could be 9 months, so it varies. So that's something you need to be prepared for, is that you always have to have your resume updated, always networking with each other. You never know where your next job is going to come from. And one story I like to tell a lot, how I got into NBC, was a former intern of mine at ABC, when I was at ABC, kept in touch with me after she graduated, and she got into the NBC Page program. She knew that I had moved on from Disney ABC Media Networks and was looking for a new opportunity, and she let me know that her boss, who ran the campus relations program, had left. And she made me aware of the opening, and I immediately followed up. And then I went to through my network and found to see if I knew anybody at NBC who might be able to forward my resume on to the right person. And long story short, a vice president that I used to work at ABC had left ABC and was now at NBC, and he's the one who actually gave me a recommendation, and that's how I got into NBC. So a lot of times, you just never know where a job lead is going to come from. So don't look at each other as competitors. Look at each other as a network of people. Like, jobs could come to you that you may not be interested in or that you're not able to take. You could pass on to your friends and colleagues. So one of the most important things that you need to be is flexible. When I was applying, one of the places I also wanted to work, I was trying to get out of news. I worked for 3.5 years in news. I started off as a production assistant with Univision, working hard news, and then moved over to Telemundo, and I did that for 3.5 years. And when I was in college, I knew I wasn't going to like news. But, you know, I gave it 110%. I stuck with it for 3.5 years. I learned an awful lot. I don't regret 1 minute of it, because if you could do news, you could do anything. After news, everything that I produced after that was a piece of cake. Because in news, you have to turn it around very quickly. Most of the programs, you have months or weeks or days to put it together, and it's a completely different experience. So I had applied for an associate producer position for a public affairs program on WPIX-TV here in New York, Channel 11. I applied, I had been an associate news producer, and I wanted to get out of news. I wanted to do public affairs, and it was like a perfect job, and I wanted it so bad. I did some research. I found out who the director of human resources was, and I sent her a resume, and I followed up with a phone call. And of course, she had no idea who I was, but I mentioned something on my resume that she remembered. And she listened to me, and I gave her my 30-second elevator pitch. How many of you have an elevator pitch? It doesn't matter if you haven't graduated yet. You should start thinking about it and have it now to secure those internships. So she told me to keep in touch with her. And I did. When somebody, particularly a recruiter, tells you to keep in touch with them, you keep in touch with them. Always ask what's appropriate, how often is it appropriate to call. My personal rule of thumb is every other week, if is appropriate, unless the person tells you to go away. I usually tell people, if I meet somebody who really impresses me, I tell them, keep in touch with me, and I give them my business card. Then usually twice a month is a good rule of thumb. And if I don't get back to you, that doesn't mean that I'm ignoring you. It just means that I don't have anything for you at the time. At Channel 11, when I found out the Director of Human Resources' name and I connected with her on the phone, I called this woman twice a month, every month, for a year and a half. And one day she picked up the phone, she goes, Delia, I have something for you. I was so ecstatic, and it was the associate producer job that I wanted. And I went in, and I was kind of depressed because I interviewed with the SVP of programming, who proceeded to have a 20-minute interview with me, and I walked out of there like completely bummed out, thinking, oh man, this was a really short interview. There's no way I got this job. 3 weeks passed, and I didn't hear back, and I thought for sure I didn't get the job. And I was sitting down, ready to start working on my new cover letter when the phone rings. And it was the SVP of programming I had interviewed with at WPIX. And her name is Kathy Shepard. And she used to be the president of the Emma Bowen Foundation. You might want to look her up. She passed away a while ago, but she was a wonderful mentor and great lady. And she called me to tell me, she says to me, Delia, I'm calling you to let you know that we have decided to go with another candidate, and I got all depressed. We've decided that to go with another candidate, but there's another job that we'd like to offer you. And I'm like, oh, terrific! I got all excited. So she says to me, so I asked her, what's the other position? And she said, we'd like to hire you to be our on-camera correspondent for Best Talk on Location. And I sat there, and I almost literally dropped the phone. And I was like, excuse me, run that by me again? And I started shaking. And she says, we'd like you to be one of our new correspondents for Best Talk on Location. And I didn't know what to say. I was like, she says, do you accept? Do you want to consider it? I'm like, yes. Anyway, long story short, I wound up taking on that job. It was a job that I was not pursuing. Prior to this position, I actually had absolutely no respect for people in front of the camera. I was like, oh, how difficult is it there to stand there and read a prompter to a camera? Like, give me a break. That was my attitude. I was always the behind the cameras person. I was the producer. I was not the person in front of the camera. Never aspired to be the person in front of the camera. And when I got this job, I got really excited because for the first time, I was actually going to be producing a whole piece on my own, deciding all the video, shooting video, going out into the field, coming back, editing, putting an entire package together, which was so excited. But then I remembered, oh my God, I have to do a stand-up, and I have no idea what I'm doing. So I promptly picked up the phone, and I called up an anchor friend of mine, and she gave me some tips, and I was able to get through it, and I did pretty good while I was there. I also produced a documentary on the census that won an Emmy while I was at WPIX, and it was a great experience. But the most important part of that experience was, it was something I didn't expect. It wasn't anything that I pursued. It just kind of came my way, and I went with it, even though I didn't have experience working, on camera. I decided that this was a good opportunity for me, and after that, my view of people who sit in front of the camera completely changed, and it made me a better producer because I knew what it took to be good on camera, and I never particularly thought I was very good, but I was able to put my pieces together, and it made me get a new respect for people who, you know, strive to be anchors and want to be on camera. So be open to opportunities that come your way that you may not have necessarily come your way, or that you've been after. After I did the WNET job, I freelanced for a couple of years, and ultimately I got the job at WNET Channel 13 as a producer for a documentary called The New ABCs, which was about the use of technology in education. How I got that job was I did an unpaid internship after I graduated from college. Now, one thing I want to say about internships is there's no such thing as unpaid internships anymore. Today, you either have to get paid for an internship, minimum wage, or be eligible to get credits for an internship. And there are 6 things that you should be looking for when applying for those internships. And this is what you should be looking for. There should be an outline or a job description, or preferably a minimum of an outline overview of what you will be learning, kind of like a curriculum, like a syllabus, of the things that you would be doing on this internship. The internship should be supervised by somebody. In other words, they can't just say, come in and log these tapes for me, and then you're sitting in a room all day logging tapes. You should be supervised, you should have tasks and specific things that you'll be working on. Projects, a lot of times it's projects. The internship should be for a set amount of time, meaning that at the beginning it should be made clear it's from September to December, 3 days a week, 4 hours a day. It should be stipulated how long you're going to be doing this internship. It should not involve you doing any work that the company benefits from. You can't be doing any work that somebody else used to get paid for to do. So those are things that you should be on the lookout for. So actually, the internship should be disruptive to the operations because the company is supposed to be offering you an opportunity not only to learn, but it should be an educational experience, and that takes time. That's why you should be supervised when doing it. And there shouldn't be a promise of a job at the end of it. A lot of times, how many of you have seen that HBO series Girls? Raise your hand. Yeah, how many of you love that show? Great, right? She had an internship for a year, I think it was, unpaid. Those things should not be happening anymore. Most major media companies now offer paid internships and at least provide an educational opportunity, and it should never be promising you a full-time job at the end of it because you don't know what's going to happen. Not to say that internships don't turn into full-time jobs. Sometimes they do. Somebody leaves a company, an opportunity opens up within a company. Interns are always the first ones that companies go to. There's a company called Vice Media that frequently does that. Their interns will frequently be hired into entry-level positions upon hire. NBC and Disney, ABC Media Networks, ABC Networks that I used to support used the internship programs as a way of getting freelancers for production positions and entry-level positions within the company. They're usually given preference. So, because they already know how the company operates, they know the in and the out, so it's always preferable to hire an internship. So those are great ways of getting in. When I did my internship, I helped out in the research for a show called Innovation. It was a daily science and technology news magazine. And when I finished that internship, I stayed in touch with the producer. And I mailed the executive producer of the show an updated resume every 6 months for 6 years. Never once got a reply, never once got an acknowledgement. Periodically, I would check to see if he was still there, if the show was still on, if he was still there. I knew he was there. I knew he was getting them. Somebody had to be reading them. So I kept in touch with this man. And again, one day, 6 years later, I called And he says, I'd like for you to come in. I'm getting ready to staff up for a documentary series about science and technology. And I came in and I got the job. So sometimes it's about persistence. If you're persistent enough, not to the point of being annoying, and you always ask, if you think you're being annoying, ask the recruiter what's the appropriate thing to do. I've filled hundreds of entry-level positions. Once I made the switch into HR, I decided that it was really important to keep in touch and always be building a pipeline. I do a lot of career coaching. I worked with my own company called TV Media Careers. I still have a website where I coach students all the way up to senior level professionals on how to focus your resume. As on the previous panel, somebody mentioned doing a customized resume. That's essential, because how you get our attention is by making sure that what's in the job description is on the top of your resume. If you don't get my attention in the first top page of the resume, I'm not going to get to the bottom or the second page if there is one. So that's essential. So you're probably wondering, how is it that I wound up at Macy's? Once I went into HR, I decided to concentrate on talent acquisition and recruiting. And I did it for the media companies. And most recently, I was consulting with Elastic, and I got a phone call. This is another example of sometimes you need to be open to other opportunities. And I got a call from Macy's to come and work as a manager of talent acquisition for marketing, supporting special events, media, and marketing. And I work now for one of the divisions I support is parade operations. And if anybody's interested in being an elf at Santa Land during the holidays, please come and see me. So that is my journey. I'm going to open it up to questions. So ask away. Yes.
What was your major in college, and like what, other than internships, like activities did you do in college that helped you?
Great question. My major was communication arts because I went to St. John's, and at the time they did not have a TV or television film production major. Activities I did on campus included being part of the Chapel Players, which was a theater drama club. I made a point of getting a job on campus at the TV station. So the last 2 years I was there, I worked at the TV station on campus, which got me access to a lot of equipment. I learned how to use a lot of editing and cameras and lights and all the stuff that's necessary for production. So I did a little bit of everything, but I tried to concentrate my part-time jobs in the field. And I took as many TV production classes as I can get into. Yes? Very important statistic I'm about to give you. I just came back, actually, today, from a 4-day conference in San Francisco. It was the Talent Connect conference that LinkedIn hosts every year. 90% of recruiters use LinkedIn to find candidates to fill jobs. But even more important to LinkedIn is applying online to the companies that you want to work for. LinkedIn actually is how I got my job that I have right now. Somebody looked for the qualifications they were looking for. They needed a recruiter who understood media, who could hire for digital media, knew how to execute the digital media. I had just finished my certification this past summer for digital media marketing at NYU. So they were looking for somebody who really knew the digital media and analytics world, because I'm supporting one of the departments I'm supporting is customer strategy and intelligence. So LinkedIn is a way to connect not only with each other, but everybody that you know, your friends, your parents' friends, neighbors, because you never know. The whole 6 degrees of separation is definitely evident in LinkedIn, and it's absolutely essential to be on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, and everybody who's in this room should connect with me on LinkedIn. On Facebook, I actually advertise jobs that I'm working on, entry level, and Twitter. I'm on Twitter under @TV Media Careers, and under my name under Facebook and LinkedIn. It's absolutely essential. LinkedIn right now is primarily used for filling full-time staff positions. Entry-level positions, not yet, but LinkedIn is doing they're making huge strides into expanding the network of students on LinkedIn. Thank you. You could see me afterwards for questions.